story of the Oscar fish, past, present, and future. Once, deep within the tropical rivers and slow-moving waters of South America, a fish swam unnoticed, blending into its environment like any other species. This was the Astronotus ocellatus can, more commonly known as the Oscar fish. Little did the world know that this modest creature would someday become a celebrated icon in both aquariums and natural environments across the globe, stirring debates about biodiversity, conservation, and the role of non-native species in ecosystems. The past, discovery and early life of the Oscar fish. The history of the Oscar fish begins in the heart of South America. Native to the Amazon and Orinoco river basins, this hardy species thrives in the murky waters, where it takes shelter among submerged rocks and dense vegetation. As both a predator and a scavenger, the Oscar fish has evolved to be an opportunistic feeder, preying on smaller fish, insects, and plants. Oscar fish were first described in 1758 by the famous naturalist Carl Linnaeus. However, it wasn't until the mid-20th century that the Oscar began to emerge outside of its native region. Before this, it had remained relatively unknown to the outside world, living in the shadows of the vast Amazon rainforest. However, as global trade expanded, the Oscar fish found its way into the international aquarium scene. In the early days of its introduction, the Oscar was not widely recognized for its striking beauty and lively behavior. It wasn't until aquarium hobbyists in North America and Europe took an interest in the fish that its popularity began to grow. With its distinct markings, vibrant hues, and bold personality, the Oscar became a sought-after species for fish tanks across the globe. The wild habitat of the Oscar remained largely undisturbed for many years, as local indigenous populations and natural cycles kept the fish in check. In the rivers and lakes of South America, Oscars were an important part of the ecosystem. However, looming changes that would bring both new challenges and new opportunities for the Oscar fish. The present. Oscar's role in the aquarium trade and ecological concerns. Today, the Oscar is known across the world as one of the most charismatic freshwater aquarium fish. It is celebrated for its dynamic personality, often interacting with owners in ways that many other fish species do not. Known for being intelligent and even capable of recognizing its owner, the Oscar has become the centerpiece of many aquarium tanks. Habitat and environmental conditions. Currently, Oscar fish live predominantly in aquariums, far from their natural South American home. To mimic their tropical habitat, aquariums are maintained at warm temperatures, typically between 74 degrees Fahrenheit and 81 degrees Fahrenheit, 23 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius. The water is usually soft, slightly acidic, and clear, though Oscars can adapt to a range of conditions. In the wild, however, Oscar fish are found in slow-moving rivers and floodplains, where water conditions are less stable and far murkier. Biodiversity and environmental impact. While Oscar fish are cherished by aquarium owners, their introduction to non-native environments has raised some ecological concerns. In places like Florida, the Oscar has escaped or been released into the wild, where it has begun to establish itself in local ecosystems. As an aggressive species, the Oscar competes with native fish for resources, often displacing them and changing the balance of local aquatic life. This situation has led to the consideration of the Oscar as an invasive species, with both positive and negative implications. Despite these concerns, there are ongoing debates about the environmental impact of the Oscar spread. In some regions, efforts are being made to prevent the Oscar from becoming a disruptive force. Local governments have implemented regulations to control the release of non-native species into freshwater ecosystems, with the Oscar at the forefront of these initiatives. The future, challenges and conservation of the Oscar fish. Looking toward the future, the Oscar fish faces numerous challenges, both in terms of its conservation in native habitats and the management of its presence in non-native environments. Conservation in the wild. In the Amazon and Orinoco river basins, the Oscar faces threats from habitat destruction caused by deforestation, water pollution, and climate change. The waters that once flowed pristine and abundant now suffer from the impacts of human activity. Deforestation, in particular, has affected the local environment, altering the course of rivers and reducing the natural habitats where the Oscar lives. To ensure the long-term survival of Oscar fish in the wild, it is crucial to address the broader environmental issues affecting the Amazon. Global efforts to reduce carbon emissions, stop illegal logging, and protect freshwater ecosystems must be intensified. Protecting the fish's natural environment would not only help preserve the Oscar, but also safeguard the many other species that rely on the same ecosystem. Aquarium trade and breeding. On the other hand, The commercial demand for Oscar fish in the global aquarium market is unlikely to diminish. This has led to a rise in captive breeding programs, which aim to meet the demand without putting pressure on wild populations. The future of the Oscar fish in aquariums is closely tied to sustainable breeding practices and responsible management of fish sales. In addition, more research is needed to better understand the Oscar's behavior and biology in both captive and wild environments. This research can help develop better care practices for aquarium owners and guide conservation efforts in the wild. Invasive species management. One of the most pressing issues for the Oscar fish moving forward is managing its spread to non-native ecosystems. As an adaptable species, the Oscar has proven capable of surviving in a variety of environments. Its ability to outcompete local species for food and habitat poses a risk to biodiversity in affected regions. Authorities must be vigilant in controlling the Oscar's spread, and responsible aquarium practices must be promoted to prevent further ecological disruptions. People's opinions. Views on the Oscar fish. People's opinions about the Oscar fish vary greatly depending on their interaction with the species. Aquarium enthusiasts. For many fish enthusiasts, the Oscar is a fascinating and rewarding species to keep. Its active nature, strong sense of personality, and ability to interact with its owner make it an attractive choice for aquarium owners. However, Oscars are not without their challenges. Their aggressive behavior and tendency to be territorial can create difficulties when pairing them with other fish. Environmentalists. From an ecological perspective, environmentalists are concerned about the potential damage the Oscar can cause when it enters non-native habitats. As an invasive species, it can disrupt local ecosystems and put native species at risk. This has led to calls for more regulation around the sale and release of Oscar fish. Local communities. In their native habitats, the Oscar is part of the natural biodiversity, contributing to the food chain and the balance of river ecosystems. However, the growing threats from habitat destruction and human activity are pushing this balance to the edge. Local communities in South America are increasingly aware of the challenges facing the Oscar fish and are beginning to see it as a symbol of the larger environmental issues impacting their region. Conclusion. A balanced future for the Oscar fish. The Oscar fish's journey from the depths of South America's rivers to the tanks of aquarium hobbyists worldwide is a story of both fascination and concern. It is a fish that has captured the imaginations of many, thanks to its striking colors, captivating behavior, and distinctive personality. Yet, it is also a species that must be carefully managed to ensure its continued survival and prevent it from harming local ecosystems in non-native regions. Looking ahead, the future of the Oscar fish lies in balancing its commercial appeal with responsible conservation efforts. Through sustainable aquarium practices, captive breeding programs, and stronger environmental protections in its native habitat, we can help preserve this fascinating species for generations to come. The story of the Oscar fish, like so many others, is not just about the creature itself, but also about the broader challenges of preserving biodiversity and maintaining the delicate balance of ecosystems on our planet. Key recommendations for the future. 1. Strengthen habitat protection. Support efforts to reduce deforestation and water pollution in the Amazon and Orinoco river basins. 2. Promote responsible aquarium trade. Encourage responsible breeding and prevent the release of non-native Oscars into local environments. 3. Research and awareness. Conduct further studies on the ecological impact of the Oscar fish and promote awareness about its role in the aquarium trade and its effects on native ecosystems. 4. Invasive species management. Implement stronger regulations on the release of non-native species like the Oscar into the wild. Through these actions, we can ensure that the Oscar fish remains a positive and sustainable part of our world for years to come. Hope this helps. It's a really interesting story you've